Okay.
Which is useful in tracing bacterial internal descent.
Okay. Great recall. So the molecules in the cell can be organized into different parts that we describe, right, in terms of their function, right? Well, the cell uses 4 different types of macromolecules to do what it does. Macromolecules. And here they all are. And there's 4 classes of them: proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates. So if you're thinking of the parts of the cell, like the organelles, right? The mitochondria, for example, all of that, all of those are made up of 4 different types of macromolecules. What is a macromolecule, though? Just by the name, what do you think a macromolecule is?
Large molecule.
Yeah, it's a large molecule. Sometimes those large molecules are made up of repeating units, and we call those polymers. So it's made of many units. Like, I don't want to say, like starch is a good example. Starch is basically it's a repeating unit of sugar over and over and over and over. Very simple one. So it forms a nice chain of the same thing repeating itself. So I think what are some things you want to know about those? Lipids, proteins, carbohydrates, and starches. And I'll add that to this list. Sure.
How do they interact to make the cell work?
Okay. So how do they interact? Chloe, I'm sorry, not Chloe. Sophie.
What are the main roles of those 4? Like, what do they do?
Okay, what are their main roles? So I can tell you right now for that answer, it's like a lot of these are building blocks for other things. So for example, the nucleic acids are building blocks for DNA. So, just so you know. What else do you want to know? Do you know what they look like? So if I said nucleic acid, you'd be like, yeah, it's this. So maybe what do they look like, right? So to be able to talk about them, what do they look like? Because this is really all about you, right? That's the cool thing about biology is that we're really talking about chemistry in a way that affects us every single day. Like all this, everything you learn about is happening in your body. Okay. So, moving on to this insane picture, what we're going to be focusing on are not any of those things, but this. So all those parts of the cell we just talked, like Grace had brought up with organelles, and we could break it out into all their different functions. We're focusing on just one part today and tomorrow. And you can't see it. They call it a plasma membrane. We're going to call it the phospholipid bilayer. And everything that happens inside and outside of this layer here. So phospholipid bilayer, which is the cell's membrane, that's what it's made out of, and what's happening inside and outside of the cell. I started writing this letter here. What's outside the cell? I didn't finish that word, that formula.
H2O.
H2O. right? Your body is how much of it is water? Most of it, some of it, or none of it? Mostly water. So the cell lives in what sort of environment? Aqueous. It lives in a water environment. Outside and what do you think the cytoplasm is made out of? Mostly. It's water. So water exists inside and outside the cell.
Water.
So it lives in, that's the kind of environment it lives in. So we're focusing on the inside of the cell, obviously, right? Because we want to know where in the cell everything goes. And this special membrane. So if they're separate, there must be, what makes them separate from each other? So what makes something want to hang out in the inside of the cell versus in the phospholipid bilayer? So there must be something special about those molecules. So to answer that question, we need to know what is the nature of water and what is the nature of the phospholipid bilayer. That's what we're going to be exploring the next couple of days. So the nature of water and the nature of this phospholipid bilayer. So first we have to define, we know what water is, right? We're pretty good at that. If I say water, we can draw a water molecule. But we might not know this. This is new to us. When you see the word bilayer, what does that mean? Kendall? Yeah, 2 layers. And you can sort of see it, right? There's one here. So we kind of have one here, and we have one here. And what does this show as inside and outside, Hannah? Water. And what do you think this word lipid means? Because we already talked about lipids. What are lipids like? Fats. Right. So it has something to do with fats. So why? Why is it important to know the nature of these two things? It has to do with our first question. Where in the cell does it go? Andrew?
You can explain how they interact.
Mm-hmm. You can explain how they interact. Nick? So in understanding how they interact, you can understand how they might be attracted to each other. So the biomolecules, are they attracted to water or are they attracted to the phospholipid bilayer? And what do we need to know? If we're going to talk about that, then we need to talk about this. We've seen this word before, and it'll come back in a second. We'll need to talk about this. We're going to have to talk about that. And we're going to have to talk about this. And we're going to have to talk about this. All of this together can help us talk about attraction. And attraction, in turn, will help us understand where in this cell it goes. That you can write down. What's that? Like, whoa, a lot of information, right? So some of this hopefully is familiar to you a little bit. Some of it might be like, oh gosh, I totally forgot about it. And the rest of the day today, we're going to be just exploring all of those words.
What's it say? Bond?
Bonding. Liam, can you read through those for me?
Yeah. Attraction, molecular dipoles, electronegativity, bonding, dipole moments, and molecular geometry.
Okay, and what are they all pointing to?
Attraction.
Yeah, all point to attraction. So as I was saying before, should I stay on this slide for a moment or two? Okay. And I'll just kind of I'm going to feed you into the future a little bit. Because when we talk about attraction, where am I going to go with that? We actually brought it up at the very beginning of the trimester. It's going to be tough. Think about like dissolves like. Okay, charges. So if I think of attraction, I'm thinking about polarity, something that's hydrophilic, something that's hydrophobic. I could also talk about hydrogen bonding. So all of this is going to feed into those words, which will help us understand. So if I look at a molecule like H2O, I can tell you its polarity. And if I look at a chloride anion, I should be able to tell you if that's hydrophobic or hydrophilic. So our goal by the end of tomorrow is that you'll actually look at a molecule and you'll be able to say, oh, that's hydrophobic or that's hydrophilic. And because it's hydrophobic, this is where it goes in the cell. Or because it's hydrophilic, this is where it goes in the cell. So that's kind of where this all leads to. So attraction, polarity, hydrophilic, hydrophobic. So again, where in the cell, so that helps us explain where in the cell it goes. What's this slide? I don't remember what I put here. Apparently I rewrote everything again. Oh, so we're just focusing on these words today. And then the last slide is going to be like what we learned. All right. So, enough of notes for now. Thank goodness. That was only 15 minutes, actually. That wasn't that bad.